I became an iron ore miner when I was 21 years old. I was going to Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and my father was paying for half of my schooling. And he wanted me to be an art teacher because he believed that that would create the most security in my life. Well, I wasn't too interested in security. I was interested in being a painter. And so I was a fine arts painting major, and I didn't tell him. One of my report cards came back and he saw that I was not the major that he thought I was, and he said that he wasn't going to support me going to school anymore. So I had to go and make money somehow. So I decided to go work in this mine. There were 800 men and 12 women. Grace Mine hadn't opened very long, so almost all the men worked other kinds of jobs all their lives, like they were farriers or farmers and traditional kinds of people who didn't believe that women should be underground. You know, we were supposed to be home baking pies. We had to prove that we could do the work. And so your first couple months, you're called a mucker. You just shovel iron ore sludge. And then we became like drillers, helpers, blasters, helpers. We would get into what they called a cage, and there was like 40 some of us, and you get packed in there like sardines that took you underground. They would push against me so that the guys could feel my breasts in front of me. So I had to stand there with my plastic lunch bucket right here at my boobs so that when he pushed against me, the lunch bucket would go into him. It's like, all right, guys, it's so queer. But it was that kind of thing that I had to learn how to handle myself. But after, it wasn't very long at all before they started really taking care of me. They were fun guys. They were always laughing and carrying on. And they'd bring great meals and, you know, heat them up down there on like little stoves. Everything they shared with us. They taught me how to chew tobacco, and they took me hunting and fishing and motorcycle rides and dates, even though they were married. You know, the only men that I was around besides my brothers was my dad's friends. And they were all good Catholic men, you know. And then, there's these 800 men. Not that they were bad men, but they were just normal men. And that was just light years of education for me. It's those kind of experiences where you realize, wow, if I can do this, then I don't see limits in my life, or hardly any limits. And I'm responsible for creating whatever kind of life I want. It's not up to my parents to hand me the money to get to art school. My dad and I were very close. We had a great relationship. It was just like, oh dear God, you know, what are you going to do now? And when I was at the academy, I stopped going there to hike the Appalachian Trail and be a thru hiker. You cannot grow as an artist if you stay the same and don't do anything in your life. And I was a life drawing model for 25 years after that. I wrote this long letter to my parents saying, yeah, you know, I've accepted my body to the point where I could take my clothes off and model. And my dad had a fit. And he used to send me like holy cards and plaques that said like, have you prayed about it? And it's like, oh my God, Dad, you know, this wasn't a big deal. So I had to lie to him that I stopped modeling. I remember thinking, how can I make anybody happy? How can I make my husband happy? How can I make my kids happy later on in life if I'm not happy first? But, you know, my dad was a depression baby. He was trying to support his family. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. They had 4 kids. He didn't feel like he had choices. He said to me, you know, we would all like to live the way that you are, and we can't. It's like, why not? They didn't want me to hike the trail. They didn't want me to hunt. They didn't want me to model. But they always loved me. And they always would say like, oh, you know, we don't like this. You know, we're not big on this at all. But if you fall or if you screw up, we're here for you and we love you. So I always had this unconditional love. They empowered me to be able to be myself, even though they weren't there saying, yes, we think you should work in an iron ore mine with 800 men.
Alright, I'll keep trying.